Alrighty, here we are again. Another Bible Basics. Really fun topic this time. Sin. Don't we just love talking about that? So fun. We'll try to keep this one shorter though, because it's not a fun topic, but hopefully give some insight and maybe some helpful perspective on sin. So Dustin, what is sin?
Well, again, it's one of those things that we always come back to. It depends on how you define it, because the Bible talks about there's different kinds of sin. There's sins of omission, which are easy. Like you don't, oops, I didn't even realize I just sinned. So that's like, those are tough. There's sins of commission that we intentionally do it. But then with those sins of commission, there are iniquities, there are transgressions as part of that as well. And those ratchet things up to a higher, and it's all sin's the same to God. Yeah. But as far as how it corrupts us,
how it affects you,
and it affects you, that the different levels of sin affect you. God, it's the same. He's like that. If you don't have Jesus and you're not washed in the blood, it's the same. You're damned as soon. And again, you commit a sin you didn't even realize you committed. Yeah. But you're damned for it. Because you didn't, because you weren't perfect. Yeah. And that's the requirement for God is perfection.
Yeah. To be unblemished.
So all those different kinds of sin. And so again, it depends on what kind of sin you want to call sin. The word sin that's used usually in the Greek means to miss the mark. Oh. So, I don't have the word in front of me, but again, look it up. But it just means to miss the mark. So it's like, think about a bow and an arrow and shooting an arrow and missing the mark is kind of the way Scripture describes it. Some sin, that word is actually used in the Hebrew and Greek. But those sins that are like transgression and iniquity. They're a little bit different. They're a little more severe.
I guess most people think sin is violating one of the 10 commandments or whatever.
In a way it is, because the first 5 have to do with God. The second 5 have to do with man. And anything you do, because like you think, well, I'm not going to go kill somebody.
Yeah, but, easy. I don't have to kill somebody.
And I'm not going to go, have an affair or whatever. But Jesus raised the bar. Yeah. Because people say, well, Jesus abolished all that. No, he didn't abolish it.
Those still apply. You're still not supposed to kill people.
The bar really high. He said, if you even think those things in your heart, you have sinned. Yeah. And so it's like, that's why the Pharisees freaked out so much, because they're like, well, we can never do it. It's impossible. Yeah. And that was the point he was trying to make.
Yeah, you can't do it on your own.
You can't do it.
Yeah. So why does God tell us not to sin? I think a lot of people have this perspective, depending on how you grew up and what church you went to and blah, 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 this kind of stuff. It's always they have a perspective that it's like, God has these rules because he's controlling and it's a religious thing. As like, these are just the rules. You have to go to church. You can't lie. You can't, God doesn't want you to have fun. So you can't do X, Y, and Z because he's controlling, is usually people's perspective. But why does God actually tell us not to sin?
Well, just like he put 2 trees in the garden, like we were talking about offline a little bit. 2 trees. Yeah. And one gives you life. The other, it says it make you wise. But God said, don't do it. Yeah. And I know people say it's not really real. It didn't really happen. It's like metaphoric. Some mythological. And I don't think so. I think it's
really actually happened.
It actually really happened. Yeah. Because we have to have original sin and all of that. And I think the Bible makes it clear. But I think that, where was I going with that? That the choice. He has to give us free will. Just like he gave Adam and Eve, he has to give us free will. He's not going to force you and drag you into heaven. Yeah. It's your choice.
Yeah, nobody wants to force you to be their friend.
And he doesn't want us to sin because sin hurts us. Yeah. And he knows it. Because like if you go have an affair or you kill somebody, there are natural consequences
You've hurt
for
someone.
doing those things. You've hurt someone else and
you hurt yourself.
Hurt yourself too.
Yeah.
And then Paul even goes on to talk about sexual sins. He said those are the worst, which is interesting. He said those are like, you wouldn't think there's degrees of sin. Man, we talked about the iniquity and stuff, but you wouldn't think. But Paul says these are worse because they're against your own
self
body and yourself, because it hurts you. And we don't really even understand, I don't think, how it fully hurts us. I mean, psychologically, mentally, I think it messes us up. Big messes with our hormones, messes with our chemical balance. I think it
everything
messes with it all, because it creates chaos, and that's what sin does. Is it brings chaos out of order.
And I think that's the perspective, the biblical perspective that we need to have regarding this topic. Is it's not just about rules I need to follow to be a good person. God's a loving father, and he's always after our hearts. So if he tells you not to touch the stove, it's not because he just flippantly has a rule.
Right.
It's because he knows if you touch the stove when it's on, it's going to burn you. You're gonna get hurt. And so like even for me, like my own journey, growing up, being a Christian, I'm trying to understand this. I'm like, okay, there has to be a reason. God doesn't do things flippantly. So I started dissecting, why would God say not to do this? Because it'll hurt me. It'll hurt my relationship with my family. It'll hurt my relationship with him. Got it. It's better for me not to. There's always a reason why. It's not just for controlling reasons to be flippant.
And the stuff that when they were in the wilderness, and even after that, the dietary law that he gave them.
Yeah.
They'd sin when they would break it, or being around a dead body and all these things. It was because we talked about this offline, but the hygiene stuff.
Yeah, they didn't know about germs and stuff back then, but he knew about germs and don't eat raw meat and don't drink blood and stuff. That's bad. You're going to get sick.
Exactly. So it's not like he's just trying to keep them from enjoying things. It's like,
don't eat bacon.
This will hurt you. Do not do this. It will harm you and hurt you.
Yeah. No, because he's a loving father. I think that's the perspective we need to have even about this. So another question, how do we walk in righteousness? Okay, I don't want to sin. That's bad. My heart isn't for that. How do I start to walk in righteousness?
Well, I think part of it is we have to recognize that we're sinners. And that's not our nature as if we're a believer. But that's with us. And, some people say, well, Christians don't sin anymore. That's hogwash. Go show me somebody that doesn't sin anymore. Because again, to go back to what Jesus raised the bar on the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, even in your heart,
even
your
in
thoughts.
your heart. So somebody in their thoughts, like, think some evil thought. Okay, well, you just sinned. So I think that to walk in righteousness, we have to understand what righteousness is. And the Bible, I think, is our blueprint for that.
Yep.
And I think that, it goes back to one of the other ones where we talked about. It's about ambassadorship and loyalty to King Jesus. If we love him, you'll keep. He says, "If you love me, keep my commandments."
Yeah.
And so, and again, it's not a rule thing where he wants to pop a whip. It's because he knows it's good for us to do those things, and so I think that to be able to walk in righteousness, we have to acknowledge him as Lord, and understand that he's not this father that wants to inflict burdens on us. He wants to set us free and teach us, because again, when we get to heaven, this is our only chance we get to struggle with things of this life. Yeah, because when we're in heaven, none of that stuff is there. There's no sin there.
No bad things.
No sickness, no disease. It's a different place. There's no hate. Yeah. There's no fear. I mean, it's just perfect. It's perfect, and there's no chaos there. So I think that he's training us here to understand those things, because again, this is our only chance we get to learn those things. And I think the way we handle those things, and something we'll talk about more in another time, is going to determine the assignments we get in heaven. Because if you go back to the parables, when the parable of the talents, he gave 110, he gave that whole thing and breakdown of that, and he expected them to steward those things well.
Yeah.
And he said to him that, did this well, I'll give him 10 cities to rule over. Mm-hmm. So I think our ambassadorship to him and our loyalty to him and using our gifts that he gives us in the appropriate way teach us to walk in righteousness so that when we get to the other side, we will be able to, again, we won't have to take 10,000 years to learn some of the things.
We're understanding,
That, like the thief on the cross, probably still learning.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, I think too, I also think about like, to walk in righteousness, it really does take conviction, right? Because I can only live by the rules for so long. In my own strength and in my own mind. I can, especially if I'm struggling with something, right? I'm in bondage to something. I can live by the rules for a period of time. But eventually, I can only live, only so long. But when your heart is convicted, when you have the Holy Spirit convict you and you feel like that, feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, oh, that makes me feel gross. That's going to stay. So it's not, a father saying, here's the rule. If you come over here, I'm going to smack you. It's, I don't want to go over there because I know I'm going to get sick. And so I naturally on my own start to move away from things naturally, not because of fear of punishment or fear of whatever. It's because naturally when I grow closer with Jesus, when I read his word and I get full understanding, my heart starts to turn. And now I naturally start obeying the rules. And it's easy. Then it's easy. I don't have to think about all the rules like the Jewish people did. And here's like a million laws and don't eat this and do that, right? But I'm naturally in relationship with him. I just start walking with him. I naturally just end up following the rules. And when I don't, I stumble and I fall. I'm so sorry. Jesus, will you forgive me? Of course. Yeah, get back up. Let's go. Yep. Not a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it on the topic of sin. It's not that fun.
That's your last.
Oh, yeah. If I sin, do I go to hell?
Well, I think it depends. Because it depends on what sin it is. If you commit the sin of rejecting Jesus and not accepting his free gift,
then you
absolutely will go to hell.
Yeah.
But if we just sin, well, again, in 1 John, it says that we, as believers, we shouldn't practice sin. And it's a sign of whether someone's a believer or not if they live a lifestyle of sin versus, they struggle with it, but they don't just say, oh, it's okay, like some people do with certain things today.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, it's okay. God doesn't care. He'll forgive me anyway. That's
kind of taking advantage, too, of like, I know he'll forgive me anyways, so why do it, right? But
I don't think, that doesn't mean they'll go to hell. The only thing that'll send anybody to hell is rejecting the free gift of salvation.
Yeah.
Through the
Which
blood
I
of
even
Jesus.
think some people see that, and we'll probably talk about this in another video too, of like, what? So he's going to send me to hell just because, I don't believe in him? And it's like, well, here's a different perspective. He's asking you, do you want to come live in my house? And you say no. And he's like, okay, you don't have to live in my house.
Exactly.
He's not going to force you to come live in his house.
He's not sending anybody to hell. He made a way. Yeah,
you can come to my house if you want, but you don't? Okay, cool. It's not, you don't want to be my friend? Bye.
People living in the Old Testament could say that in that time because Jesus hadn't sacrificed yet. So they could say, that you sent me to hell or whatever. And it's like they can't say that now because no one could go before. The price has been paid.
Yeah. He's already said yes to you.
Their choice.
Yeah, you're the one rejecting him and choosing to go. He's already said, yes, you can come in. So if you go to hell, it's because you said, no, I don't want to.
Because, exactly. They don't want to be there. They think that people make those silly logic arguments. They hate God now. They're not going to like him anymore. They're going to... It says in the, when they're in hell, they're
they still hate him.
They're still hating God and still cursing him, which is...
Okay, that's your choice.
During the tribulation in Revelation, same thing. It's like God's throwing this wrath out, and they're sitting there shaking their fist at God and cursing him. They acknowledge him, but they want nothing to do with him.
Yeah. So I think that's also just the mind shift when, especially depending on your background and stuff like that, you have to have of, okay, if I know God is loving, he cares about me, he's a father, he doesn't come to condemn and punish, So what does this mean? You have to change your perspective on everything. I'm not going to hell because he's trying to punish me. I'm going to hell because he is loving and he's already said yes and invited me because I'm choosing not
free
to.
Will. You don't want to go. It's okay.
That's great.
Fine.
You don't have to be my friend if you don't want to. I'm not going to force you to be my friend. That's fine. No, yeah, but that's all good. So hopefully this was encouraging to you.
So don't go to hell.
Yeah, don't go to hell. Please choose Jesus. It's a fun house. He's got lots and lots of food, a big table, a big yard to play football. It's a big house. So you want to be there, and hopefully we'll see you there too.